Hello, Man in the High Castle fans. We're talking season 4, episode 6, A Serious Daring. I can fix it. I can fix it. But can you? And can you change fate? All that and more. Stay tuned.
I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
What's up? Welcome to the Man in the High Castle After Show. We're talking episode 6, All Serious Daring. Yes. Getting dark and heavy, and as the show does. And we're gonna break it all down for you. My name is Kari Lane. I'm joined by my wonderful panel.
I am Blankenship, and this is...
I am Rachel Goodman.
Alrighty, what did we think of this episode? Fate is a kind of a big theme. Can you change it?
Lots
what
of
is your destiny
surprises in this one. I think that the last episode made me cry half the time, but this one I was just constantly in shock. So that was my takeaway.
I loved the mirror with Thomas.
Yes.
Seeing something in an alternative reality.
Yes.
Which is exactly the same.
Yes. All right.
It was.
Absolutely, that one, which we'll get to that. We're going to go through our characters, kind of the smallest to the greatest. Well, not greatest, but, how much we see of them. Because some of the people, it's like, and hi, bye, and then that's it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of nice to check in with them. So one of the people that we had, just a tiny bit, but I'm glad to see they're doing well. And we got some backstory with Childen and Yukiko.
Yes.
Oh, her backstory, man. It's one of those I'm sadly not surprised that something like that went down. But I loved getting some more from her because we didn't know really anything about her. She almost was a disservice to her in terms of she's just this lady with him.
No wonder she's so appreciative of him, though.
Yes.
Yeah. And I love how she told us directly what had happened to her.
Yeah.
But she didn't... It was the level that she told us and the amount of information. You could tell that she did not go into, super amount of detail. Yeah. But... in between the, what she was saying, you could feel how awful it was.
Yes. And I love she has this line that she tells children when she says, your optimism is so American.
Yes.
I love that line
that too.
because it makes sense. I mean, even us growing up here, no matter how bad things get, I think sort of the American way is just never give up, keep going. And I think we see that throughout this show, especially with the American characters. So, of course, once Yukiko tells us this horrifying backstory, you could obviously understand why she's not so and she's just more realistic because it's true. Every time Childen has come back to the JPS, they screw him over. So.
He's the optimist and she's the realist. She's not a pessimist. She's like, no, you're not seeing this as what it can be. She has we're survivors. Yeah. And she mentions how for the Japanese men, but I feel this could apply also for the Reich, that their crimes are always revealed, which we do get that in the previous episode where Juliana mentions for the Nazis in the alternate world did go on trial. Their crimes came out to the public.
I did love, just to say one more thing about her, how she ended her story and that scene with Childen by saying, never be ashamed to eat rats.
I was about to say that too, yeah.
You're free. You can do what you want.
That's where you're survivors,
Exactly. I like that a lot too. I was like, I hope they're going to be okay. It's one of those, you're just like, no, please don't let anything happen to them. Then speaking of the Japanese, we have Kido. Well, actually, we get a really quick moment. Poor Toru is in the opium den, and I feel he's kind of a lost soul right now.
I know, and I'm really hoping that Kido is going to somehow make amends with him because I feel like if he doesn't, or there may be an attempt to, and then we're gonna find out he killed himself, and that's what I'm afraid of.
Oh, but that could possibly push Kido over to change, be like the loyalty to your nation didn't save your son.
True.
What I found interesting too is that regardless of whether we're in the alternative world or not, or in this world, I feel like the same thing could have happened to anyone who has gone through that kind of trauma where you're fighting in war and after the fact you're going through PTSD. I feel like it could have happened to a lot of people, even if they weren't living in this environment.
Well,
in an opium den.
John has said that before. He said that with Thomas of the when you go to war, you don't come back the same.
Yeah.
So absolutely, that speaks on it. And so we haven't seen Kido, unfortunately, with his son, but we get to the Ijima confession tape tucked away in a drawer. And I'm glad that comes around because I was like, wait, please don't get rid of it. And Inaguchi, when he talks to him in prison, and Inaguchi says, what has become of you? Inaguchi knows just the right things to say to Kido of like, hey, let me crack at that perfect
veneer
shell you're trying to hide. Yeah.
I loved when Inaguchi said, I'm freer than you in this jail cell. Than you
I
are.
think that is what really triggered Kido, because I think Kido's known this the whole time because he's constantly being pulled back and forth. I think that was just what he kind of needed. Of course, he kind of got defensive and didn't help him out that scene. But yeah, I think that was a powerful quote too.
He also has the one, he calls him out and he says, "You're a puppet."
Yeah.
You know, it's like, ooh, you know.
I got him. Oh, and then.
But then Kido says, like, you forget we were starving. So similar parallel to John. I bet Kido went down his path because, like, survival.
Yeah.
But it's one of those, you can't lose yourself just so you can survive.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then we also have, he goes to I like when the princess comes in and they try to dismiss her and push her away. Of like, oh, no, it's fine. And...
Yeah, and I like how Yamori he just over and over, I feel like in this episode he keeps saying, remember the cause. Yeah. So I think that is just a constant reminder for Kido, and I think this is making Kido reconsider what is his cause? Who is my duty for? So I think I like that Yamori just continuously says that in this episode, and of course, then we finally see at the end what his true cause is. So
we
that
get
was
that
cool.
court-martial.
Yep.
I like, though, Inaguchi, like, oh, yeah, that Tagomi murder thing. That's what really struck the nerve with Kido.
I think the only critique I have in that scene, it just to me seemed, it was just kind of odd how it just suddenly nothing was about the high treason. Like, they just changed the whole conversation to Tagomi, which I feel like in most courts of law, whatever the case is at hand, that's what you're discussing, and anything else doesn't matter.
Well, that shows the illegitimacy of the
Good
court
point.
that they're doing.
And I felt like that was the whole political. That was the whole political game plan for Yamori, is that they wanted to peg it on somebody, and they wanted to finalize it so that someone, if there was a tape like what Kido had, or not that he knows about it, but not that Yamori knows about the tape, but if there was a way to prove otherwise, to prove that Jima had done
wrap it up in a bow and be done with it.
Exactly, so that it couldn't come back, and that here we're having this court-martial that publicly displays the guilty party.
Yes.
My thought was that I thought we were going to see the tape. I thought that Kido was going to turn and bring out the tape. But can I talk about the kind of like skipping ahead here a little bit?
Yeah, cool, because the next bit is when we get to it's going to be the firing squad.
So, firing squad. Here is my only thing.
Okay.
When all of a sudden Kido accused Ijima and Yamori working in tandem of committing this, act of treason, I felt like Kido always had the power above and beyond Yamori, because he could just say to the firing squad, get these people, they did it, they have done that, they have committed this crime, and have the firing squad turn on his side. That, I think, speaks to his power and his influence, because somebody else, if they stepped up in his role and said that, they would listen to Yamori and not him.
I would also add, though, that similar to Kido, they're only doing their job.
Yes.
So he knows that they wouldn't question him, because that's their duty, that's their job. So he can... I think he had to still have the authority to change what they're doing, but they wouldn't question him or say, I mean, they had a moment of like, you sure?
Yeah.
And then that went on. But also Inaguchi has that moment of, you've fallen so low.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, keep jabbing at him. Get him.
Yeah, and I like that they also mentioned that Kido has the duty of rendering justice.
Yeah.
So that's
his job.
Right, and I think that is, again, we kind of keep seeing these themes of duty and causes. And I love that. What I did love about that whole scene was really Kido goes through this very physical back and forth. Like, he openly tells Yamori, we both know you did it, and then he kind of backs down, and then he comes back up. And so there were so many moments where we're like, please be good.
Yeah.
And that last second moment where he actually stops it. And
also be good within like realistic expectations. Like he couldn't just in the middle of the court kill somebody or do something like that. True. He had to wait till the right moment. Otherwise, it would not have gone probably that way.
And it probably, kind of speaking to that too, Kido probably understood that the firing squad was more likely to listen to him than when he was in the middle of the court, where it was Yomori's people who probably all knew what he had done and were probably all going to back him. Whereas if he goes out and it's the general soldier out there, they are going to hear, oh, this man killed someone. All right, let's follow.
Good point.
So smart.
So then... Ichima, R.I.P.
R.I.P.
Or not.
So then Kido does the right thing, gives the crown princess the evidence, and I like that she points out that this occupation has turned our people against each other. She is not for this occupation. She's just like, this has never been a great idea. I like that she calls him out a little bit, like, I know where your true loyalties lie. While he's like, oh no, my duties are to the emperor. I'm like,
yeah, see that.
But for real, though,
I was thinking the same thing because I was like, we are either finally hearing what his true duty has been the whole time, or I feel like he just kind of alters his duty depending what the situation is. And I've been like thinking back to different moments I'm like, was he doing that for the emperor? Or was that just because it was convenient and to kind of justify what he was doing? So yeah, I think, and the other thing is, I think this is one of the first times that we see, usually when he, talks about his duty is he's doing something terrible. So we hate him for it. But what I'm hoping is like, this is kind of one of the first times I feel like his duty is a great thing. And I remember back in the previous seasons when he had spared he killed Frank's family and spared Frank, but then he goes back on it and he's like, I shouldn't have done that. And then he kills Frank. So that's my only fear is that he did a great thing now, but I'm afraid he's going to go back on it, kind of like what he did with the Frank situation. So I'm hoping he sticks with it because I like this Kido, but I don't know if he will.
Well, and I think he still has a lot of things that it's kind of like with John, not that we're there yet, but with Kido, he has had some moments where to us he's moving forward and there's growth. But there's still a lot of things that may make him do things that are going to have us not exactly, be on his side again. It's just he's too in the environment where he is, like it's too much. Like there's still things that he has to do.
I think maybe he needs more direct contact with the crown princess because it seems like her motives and her plans are more true. And I think to him, she's part of the ultimate authority of the land, essentially.
And he always
association.
And he always, you could always tell even with Tagomi, like he had some loyalty to Tagomi. There were times where he kind of threatened to arrest him and do that stuff, but I do think he kind of ultimately he wants a peaceful resolution. So yeah, I think this will be cool to see where his duty continues to lie.
See where it goes.
Exactly.
Speaking of dedication to the cause and duty, we'll talk about Belle and the BCR. It's Darius, Belle, Elijah, Leon, and Junior, and there's pretty much like big issues of what do they do now? What's the authority going on? And I like that separately outside this conversation, Belle has a thing that said, that's what men do when they're scared. They fight.
I read that too.
And I was like, and they even have essentially the moment of like, oh, go make me a sandwich.
I read that too. I was so mad.
And I like that she did not take it. She's like, no, I'm part of this. Which is kind of what we talked about on the previous episode of how, they want the equality for the black man to make the agreement on equal terms. But then it's like, well, wait, she's part of this too, black woman as well. And she stands up, and I like that she does not back down. And she's been so instrumental in all these organizing things that it's like, no, she's important. Like, don't discredit her.
Yeah, and like the whole, now that her revelation into understanding kind of her sterilization story was another dramatic, like it was Yukiko and Belle were like, what is going on? So that was absolutely devastating. And I think this was great that this scene, we got to kind of see the women in the BCR, because I do think you're right. Like it has been very male oriented, kind of male dominated. And so, yeah, that's what I'm hoping. But Belle kind of seems to be that strong, steady head on her shoulders. So I would love to see more of kind of the women in it.
What really spoke to me in that scene with Angela, the woman who noted.
Yes. I liked Angela.
She knew that she had come from a camp.
Yep.
And I very much appreciated that they gave us more of that backstory like that without Belle ever saying, hey, I was in a camp. And it was just very interesting how it came out that way. And what also stuck out to me was the fact that when they took her out of line to go and get this operation, which kind of calls back to what we had been hearing earlier, when they got her out of line and she said, oh, yes, thank you, and was being really polite, it was powerful. Yeah.
She's all, that's what my mother taught me. And you're like, And they have that solidarity and bonding, which and the movement saved all of us, is what they talked about too. It's she almost died, but she was saved. Also, that's something we had kind of theorized early on when she has that conversation with Elijah about having children or not, and we kind of wondered. It wasn't a far jump. I mean, they didn't say so specifically before, but now we're like, which. Not our section yet, but we do have our reality in the fiction has happened to different ethnic groups in American history of them being sterilized without their knowledge and without their permission. So it's like, you think it's scary and disturbing, but you're like, but no, this has really happened.
And
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I feel like they pulled it, a lot from what was happening in the concentration camps, and just the way that people were treated, in Germany. And I was wondering that as we were kind of, seeing more with this world and seeing more with the BCR, if they were going to explain what they did with people who they deemed unworthy, like when we saw Danny and the crew of people in the back of the truck. I wanted to know more about that, if they had concentration camps in America serving that purpose, or what they did with people who were not fitting the Aryan cause.
Right. And then I'm curious too, because then I was like, well, then how would they continue having more of their own people, essentially? But then if they're all sterilized, were there others who were able to escape, or depending on what kind of sterilization, would there be any way to reverse it or something?
Because I'm assuming the way they said that the cause stepped in and got her and saved her, that they were jumping in and grabbing other people before that surgery too.
So hopefully there are some others that didn't. We learned there's a Crimson Pipeline. And of course, she's the smart one who goes, hey, wait a minute. What do these cities have in common?
I love that.
There's a pipeline. We need to attack it. And sometimes that's how it works best for a plan, is someone outside of your group, outside the regular circle, thinks up the ideas that they haven't been thinking about. We need to go at this a different way.
Yeah, and I like that she was just trying to say the cause did not end with Equiano. And I think that was the morale in the BCR at this point is kind of low. So I like that she knows the bigger purpose for this movement. I think, and I do think it was great, because you do have these kind of feminine moments, or he's talking about making them a sandwich, and then you have the moment talking about her sterilization. And so then it's a very redeeming moment, I think, for Belle, because she gets to step in. She's like, I am way better. I can do more than all of these limiting factors. So I think that was a great move.
I was going to say anything else with them? Moving on to our next strong female. We have Juliana, which go her being the puzzle code cracker. I don't know if I can do that, because I'm not the greatest at solving puzzles. Or at least I don't get as excited. I think she likes to crack the code and tinker with it. And so she notices with Abinson's video, no, there's something more.
Yeah.
And again, no offense to the gentleman out there. The Mandy, why it's so dismissive about it. Oh, no, there's not really something going on. She's like, no. Yeah. I know this person. There's something going on here. Which we also learned, too, with the idea of Helen saying, or Juliana saying, no. There's something with Helen, too. I know her, which is what we theorized as well.
Yep.
What'd you all think when she goes, I'm going to New York, and Wyatt goes, no, you're not.
Yeah, that little moment where he kind of grabs her arm, you're like, excuse me.
Yeah, I was like, Wyatt, what are you doing?
Yeah.
She's just going to go more. Like,
Exactly.
But mad props to him because he goes,
Yeah.
all right, fine, I'm going too.
I was like, okay, I can work
He's
with
like,
that.
no, he's not letting her go on alone.
Yeah.
Also, he has this moment with Brad, and they're packing up the guns. And this has happened kind of before, and I appreciate him Wyatt calling out Brad, saying, I've earned my stripes. Don't question my judgment. I feel this is similar with Belle. Like, she's earned her stripes. Why are you questioning her decisions? She's not just some person who joined the cause yesterday.
Right.
I feel this is layered with a few of our characters.
That's good.
Then we have, what else with Juliana? Oh, Juliana and Wyatt. Before the Statue of Liberty. She finds out with the code that they know that John's doing the portal going by the bullet train. So they have maybe a clue of how they can get to John, but we'll see if that goes that way. And we see the new replacement of Statue of Liberty.
I
Boo!
know. I think that was a great way to end the episode, though, because it just really struck an emotion seeing that. And you're like, I feel like that's going to drive her even more.
Yeah. She's like, wait a minute. Because, she wasn't there when that happened.
Exactly.
And I almost feel like, just kind of like spitballing here, this whole episode, so we saw two situations with women where the men basically said, oh, you're not going to come up with an idea, we shouldn't trust you. Statue of Liberty, they replace it from being just a female holding up the torch to it has to be a man and a woman.
And his hands are higher.
Yeah.
I noticed that on the torch, too. It's the lady's hand and his hands above.
Oh, good
I was thinking with that little one, with the Aryan one, is they'd need the lady so they can make babies.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Good point.
That's the main role in their little society. You're like,
job.
great.
Got it.
Which we don't get it. Well, I guess they would have found another job because has the show really addressed like if a woman can't have children?
They would most likely have been deemed like they were not Aryan and not they would have been deemed as somebody who was not good enough because if their body didn't work a certain way, then they would have.
Because do you remember it was in the previous season? It was Juliana became friends with, I forgot her name, but like she like went to the bathroom, was crying. She's like, me and my husband been trying for like 5 years.
Yeah.
And so I think she was like scared to death. If her secret came out, then like they would probably take her like Thomas because.
Because I wonder if they could find them and be like, all right, then you'll be in a different role. Like they would not.
Or if they just like cut them,
send them somewhere, just get rid of them.
I feel like it would be a situation they'd get rid of them.
I think so
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Which is creepy. Because, we know that it's not as easy as people think. And, like, there's many factors that can change that.
And the whole thing with this idea of an Aryan race is that it was, it has to be somebody with the perfect functioning body.
Yeah.
So, I think that person would have been
I think so too.
taken away.
Well, speaking of taken away, we're getting all the transitions this time. So John is back, and so now we're moving on to the other big meaty part of this episode with John. And he's trying to leave Helen.
Yeah.
Poor alt Helen doesn't know what's going on, but she notices something is off. So she's the same in both worlds. Like, don't BS
She
me.
knows.
I know something's off.
And I loved that they both, regular Helen and alt Helen, they both were like, hey, I know when you're not being honest with me.
Yeah.
We're always honest with each other. It doesn't matter which Helen it is.
Yep.
They know John.
He's like, damn, I can't lie to either of them.
Can I just say, too, I feel bad for alt Helen because her son has just left.
Oh, and her husband said she doesn't know.
Yeah. And her husband, not only is he dead, but the John that she thinks is going to come back.
Sucks.
She's never going to, potentially, we don't know if John will ever get back.
Right.
So.
And I think it's interesting, like here we can see, again, John is such a fixer. And even with Thomas, he's like, even because we had seen the past when Helen had murdered her friend by accident, he just tries to cover it up. And even with Thomas, they tried to come up with a whole scheme to get him to South America. So even here, I like that you can still see that because as soon as Thomas says that he's enlisted, John's like, all right, well, we're gonna fix this. This will be fine. So I think that really, and then there was that small part where John actually kind of blames Helen a little bit.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's like he kind of needed a scapegoat because I think it was too much for him to think that it was totally his fault. And even that little moment where he kind of asked Thomas, he's like, "Is there anything I could have said?" So I think it just shows, John, I feel like he just cannot confront these issues head on. He just wants to cover it up, fix it, and let it be. So.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, too, when he's yelling at Helen in the alt world and they're having that moment, it's almost like these two people never addressed their grief in the world that we know, and he's yelling at her and lashing out because there's this anger that he hasn't discussed, and that he's supposed to be the man who just kind of walks away and lets it go, even though obviously he cares. But it's interesting that when he yells at her, it's like he's yelling at regular Helen. Well, by
his regular one,
like Nazi Helen.
Because then we get that moment where we still get, as you mentioned earlier, Rachel, the walk away, that mirror of Thomas
like
going.
the exact same.
And so that was my thought of like, but can you change fate? This is like the time machine. Just because you change one thing doesn't mean it doesn't happen again, but a slightly different way.
And the same way that Tagomi has always said that it seems that people in one universe or dimension are drawn to each other again in the other dimension, in an alternate world. Same thing with situations, even though it was the Marines saying we're going to take good care of your son.
Oh, right?
It's the same. It's like people are drawn toward each other, but also similar situations.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he's still, when he says, be proud of me, it just was like the same thing he said, I think, when he gave himself to the Nazis.
But I feel this is sowing those seeds of the earlier prediction where we thought that Thomas is going to be some of that thing, some of those moments that are going to make John change his thoughts.
Yeah.
So he goes back and he's talking with Abinson and has that thought that, oh, yeah, I can fix it. But Abinson's like, oh, you're caught between the two now.
Yes.
And he's like, oh, I bet you would have wanted to try to stay, which is, we're like, yeah, that's what we thought he would do.
I'm just wondering if he does go back, because he was saying, he's like, I still have unfinished business there.
I think he wants to figure out a way to stop Thomas.
I know, and I don't know if he's gonna like bring soldiers with him. I don't even know how he would get away with it, but I'm interested to see what his plan is when he decides to go back.
Yeah. Well, speaking of planning, sort of, which was super creepy, Helen and Amy and the cupcakes.
Amy, man. I'm done. I'm done with her.
And how she goes, I hated it in the neutral zone, and you're like,
like, I'll choose the other daughter. You can say her.
Yeah, really. I was worried that Amy was bringing this up because they have plans to take Helen away, especially with the dinner conversation a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
I feel like this was all Amy's way of, I mean, she's a child. She doesn't necessarily know what she's hinting at, but I felt like that's why it was coming up, and that Helen, I was legitimately starting to feel worried for her.
Me too.
Oh, yeah.
Because I feel like that, maybe John too, but especially Helen, I feel like they're going to try and send her to, some kind of camp.
I think you're not that far off, because, oh, and also all the cupcakes being vanilla. We're like,
I already hate that.
And vanilla, and then Helen coming over
with the
chocolate one.
I was like, oh, girl.
Well, we should have, because not everybody likes vanilla.
Right.
Yes.
I felt like even that was enough to set Amy
That's
off.
true. And Amy could have been like, well,
Good
actually.
point. Yeah.
Why chocolate? Like, that's not good. It should just be vanilla.
I'm afraid Amy's going to slip something, and because I feel like both John and Helen at this point are kind of, because John at one point when Jennifer was playing the music and the last season, and then Amy was like, I'm going to tell everyone about it. John kind of made up a story, just like, no, you told me, it's fine. And then Helen in this part is saying, when they go to the re-education camps, a lot of times they don't come back. And so Amy just kind of ignores it.
I think Amy ignores it because she hasn't thought that
She hasn't thought it through, right.
Like most kids with their logic, they think their plan is brilliant. And then when you go, so that other thing, they go,
yes.
Well, yeah. Like, that's how she felt.
And then you have the wife confidant who obviously isn't helping. She is, like, really facilitating her thoughts. So I'm not a fan of her either.
Also,
I felt like Martha was literally, the whole braid thing.
Oh, the German braid.
Yes.
It was very undermining Helen's authority.
Your mother probably doesn't know how to do it, but here, I'll help you.
Yes.
I grew up that way.
I'm done.
Do you want to know that part of what I was thinking is that Martha is there to replace Helen? And they want him to have a better wife who fits more of the Aryan vision.
I'm not surprised. That could be a thing.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Creepy, dude.
And I almost, until John
Also,
said,
she's younger. Makes it better for breeding.
That's true.
Creepy.
Weird.
Possibly.
Okay.
I do, but you know what though? To Martha's credit, when she saw Helen come in the room and not be happy about the braid,
She did
back off
Yeah.
and was like, maybe another time.
That's true.
So it's like, I don't trust her, but I don't think she's as evil as she could be.
Yeah, at least.
Yes.
I know.
Well,
I don't know
yes.
where she's going.
And then actually leaving with Martha, but also with Helen and Amy earlier, Amy saying, do you still love Daddy?
Yeah.
And that if you're not happy, something's wrong. But Helen's like, well, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting discussion because then that discredits like the value of sadness too.
Right.
But
right.
that's a hard discussion to have with a small child.
Yeah. I am glad that, then they have, I know Helen and John has that moment talking about privacy.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
With that too, I had previously thought that John might not have known about Martha.
Okay.
It wasn't until he sat with Helen that I was like, okay. Because part of me,
He knew.
I was expecting him to be a little surprised, like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe somebody else sent her. But
Yeah.
obviously he knew. I was really frustrated because I was hoping that now that John has seen Alt Helen and they've kind of rekindled, like he can see how much.
Oh, I like that she knows. She's like, you
Yeah,
seem
she's
happier.
suspected, yeah.
He's like, well, it's only you.
Yeah.
You want to know?
Literally.
It's hilarious because Helen in the alt world, she thought he seemed darker.
Yeah,
Helen in this world thought he seemed happier.
He's happier.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also like that. I'm glad that Jennifer was overhearing the
I love
conversation.
that she's eavesdropping. I'm like,
I was first nervous it was
glad
Amy.
It's not Amy.
Yeah, I literally as soon as she came out, I was like, oh great, like it's Amy. She's gonna rat out everyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was glad that Jennifer kind of came back. So I feel like Jennifer's she's
might-
gonna have a big role, I think.
Ooh, she might help turn her mom.
That's what I'm
Be like, Mom,
hoping.
this is exactly what you're saying. Because Helen says, I want out of this cell, and where does
she
it
goes.
end?
She like, man, she really said it.
It's like one of those
so-
tell me how you really feel, but it's like
Yeah.
good because they're not talking about what they really
they're
feel.
being honest,
They've lost that honesty.
which was the whole kind of theme.
And then the accusing, like, okay, the Marthas it's too much. And like, it's a good point. Like, I think his intentions might have been good of like, keep an eye on her, but she clearly didn't take it that way.
Yeah.
Did you guys also notice? I mean, the fact that her name is Martha, it kind of just it brings me back to Handmaid's Tale too. And so I can't help but
Martha,
feel the connection. So yeah,
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of it when I was watching it, but
Yeah.
There. Cool.
yeah,
she's
but
creepy.
Just
We'll see.
It
I
is
think
creepy.
that's a good question. So she's probably 10, maybe 20 years younger than the adults. Like she looks like 20. Well,
Yeah, she looks
she's
maybe
maybe her 30s.
Yeah, I would
something in
guess
there.
that.
And I guess Helen and John are maybe their 50s.
Yeah.
So she probably was a young girl when the switch happened. So it was probably easier for her to be
Yeah.
indoctrinated in it compared to John and Helen, who were adults at the time.
Right.
And like a young couple that
Yeah.
too hard to, So it's interesting to see those. I like seeing those middle-aged people in middle-age in terms of when the
Between-
occupation happened for them.
Yeah.
So it's nice to round out
Yeah.
the world. Anything else on this episode that stood out to you?
I think that covered it.
Yeah, I think so
That was
too.
the hot points.
I did like when Hawthorne told John a little bit earlier on, you're not the first one to try and steal fire from the gods, John. The
Yes.
Prometheus reference.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a good one.
Yeah, but just just really the only other thing I want to say is that I was frustrated with John and Helen not diving in a little bit more and talking. But obviously, characteristically, that's what we're going to get right now.
Oh, yeah, for sure right now. Thank you. Well, it's a quick moment. Thank you for everybody watching, listening. If you're watching on YouTube, please leave your comments down below what you thought of this episode. Please no spoilers. I know it's a binge show, but we're going one at a time, so I appreciate you all keeping it within the episode, which I know the High Castle Club does as well. Like, they're only talking about it one at a time, so appreciate it for you to do that as well. And then also if you're listening on iTunes, leave a comment and 5 stars, because 1 through 4 just don't work. And we'll get into our special segment and news before we do our predictions. So let's go over to our special segment.
Special segment?
Yes, let's talk about to that. Let's talk some history.
Yay! It's our reality and the fiction.
Yeah. So okay, I'm gonna talk about the history of the draft -- 1 because we had obviously Thomas going off into Vietnam. I'm thinking this is 1964 at this point. We were not actually drafting people into Vietnam until '69. We were never officially at war. There was never any declaration of war, so it was a peacetime draft that began in '69. However, between '64 and '73, the U.S. military had 2.2 million American men enter. As soldiers. The other thing I wanted to mention is Parris Island, the boot camp. Which is where Thomas went. Just a little history there. We actually had people from France settling on Parris Island in 1562. And it was in the 1720s during the American Civil War that the island was, it was actually divided into plantations during that whole situation. And then in 1891, that is when Marines started going to Parris Island for boot camp.
Oh, interesting.
That's interesting.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Our reality and the fiction, the things that are real within our show. And then any
for me,
special news?
Some news. Wait for my music.
There it is.
All right. So this is more of just an interesting interview I came across. Rich Ting, who plays Ejima, he actually did an interview with the Chronicle and kind of just talking about his background in acting, and he actually left the U.S. to go to Asia to be taken seriously, and obviously now he is making really big moves on TV. He said that in 2009 or 2010, there just wasn't a lot of roles in American film, so he felt like he had to go overseas to Asia just to make some noise that would be attractive to producers. And he said he kind of compared it to a pilgrimage and said he's been doing it for over 12 years, and he feels like now is really the time for Asian Americans to shine. So that's why he's obviously back, doing really great. He does say as much as we progress, there is still a lot to work at because he's actually half Japanese, half Chinese. So he said it is kind of hard he doesn't know if film is going to kind of take a course and kind of talk about those issues being two different kinds of Asian ethnicities. So he said his number one goal is to have his own show where he is the number one character because it's not too common. I actually don't know too many shows where Asian Americans are the number one. So I think that would be awesome to see him really take on that role. And I hope that will continue to grow in Asian American film. So there you go.
Cool. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
So then we will get into some predictions.
Sweet.
And looking ahead a little bit, we'll be covering the next 3 episodes next weekend. And if you're watching this later, you'll be able to probably watch those. And then we'll be doing the finale when we come back in January. Just a heads up. So we'll really get to break that one down. Please, no spoilers. I know some people are a little bit not as thrilled with how it all ends. So please, we're doing a good job of not saying anything yet. But we'll break it all down for you because I know it's a lot to digest. So predictions for what we think is going to be happening next, towards what we think is going to be going towards the end, too.
I'm hoping that Juliana is going to try to work with Helen so that Helen doesn't die, because I predicted the last episode we are going to see Helen die. So I think it's obvious. It is obvious that Juliana is trying to use Helen in some way, but it would be great to see Helen just joining the resistance and getting out of there. I don't think it's going to go that way, but hopefully we'll see some collaboration there.
I have a very morbid prediction.
Oh, yes.
So they had kind of hinted at the atomic bomb earlier on in the show. I'm almost wondering if what's going to happen is that the whole, this is all going to escalate into a nuclear war.
Yeah.
And that the people who are going to survive are going to have to leave, go through the tunnel, and go to an alternate world. And if they don't, then this one's done for, and anyone left is done for.
I feel that's a very logical progression of like
Very
where it
moral.
could go.
Yeah.
Dark, but possible.
But possible.
Please, if we're right, do not say so yet. We'll find out later and we can laugh at ourselves later.
Exactly.
I think Helen will be able to be dissuaded away from the Reich and join the resistance, because I think at this point she really doesn't feel like she has anything to lose.
Yeah.
So she's going to be like, nope, I don't like it. I'd rather do something about it. I don't know if she would necessarily want to be as much in like the front lines aspect, but I think she'd still want to do something to disrupt the system as it is. Because I also think, almost at this point, I mean, a parent to child love is one thing, but I think she would be more okay saving Jennifer, and I feel she almost feels Amy's gone.
Yeah, it does kind of seem like Amy might not be salvageable because
Might
she's
not
just been
be.
so brainwashed. So that's why I had thought for a while that maybe, maybe
Yep,
Amy would just stay
painful.
with John and then she might take Jennifer with her.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Hard to say.
And I feel like Helen, her resistance is going to be more from the inside, as long as she can stay there without being
Without being noticed as much. And
But I feel like what we're gonna see with her in the last few episodes that we have is trying to change the system from the inside out.
Yeah. I also think John's really close to doing something of dismantling the system as well, too. So I think somebody has to die for him. I mean, he essentially has lost Thomas again, almost. But I think he thinks like he could still fix it, as he says. So maybe one of the daughters might need to die, that he'll be like, okay, wait, this I can't. Or we had such a big scene with him and Thomas of these are the rules and do you stand up to them? So maybe there'll be another moment where it's the rules and he has to break it.
Yeah. We also don't know 100% that Danny died in this world. We just saw him going off.
No body, no proof.
Yeah, but not
most
that
likely,
would,
but
Okay.
Also, I'm wondering if more of the BCR will team up with like the other resistance groups too, because I mean BCR has their concerns of their area, but it's one of those that benefits everybody to join together to resist against the larger enemies.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And again, please no spoilers.
Please.
All right, any other thoughts before we wrap it up?
I don't think so.
Awesome. So where can people find you online?
I am Rachel Goodman. You can find me on Twitter at Rach Goodman, or if you go over to Instagram, I am on there on my author Instagram account at Rachel Radner Author.
And I'm Belle Blankenship. You can find me on Instagram. That is Bebenship, B as in boy, EBENSHIP.
And my name is Kari Lane. You can find me online at Kari D Lane. That's KARIDLANE. Thank you again so much for watching, listening, and we'll see you next time. See ya.
Bye.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.